You all right to talk about that?
When I was getting taken to hospital after the stabbing, and my mum was on duty as a casualty nurse in Lewisham Hospital, and she had to get taken to the side and told, look, you're going to have to come off duty because your son's coming in. He's coming in as a DOA, dead on arrival. I just broke down.
Tony, how are you, brother?
Good. Nice to meet you, Chris.
Yes, it is. It's the joys of podcasting, mate, as I get to meet some amazing people, all of whom have been just wonderful individuals. And mate, it's not bad getting paid to chat, is it?
I can think of worse things. We've been in worse situations, haven't we?
Yeah, it's like imagine if they had podcasting back when we had to do guard duty. we could have knocked out loads. So yeah, as I was saying to you before, mate, a lot of our audience love all things military. There's there's loads there we could chat about alone, but I think you and I both, in fact, as I'm rapidly learning, I almost think everyone in society suffers from some form of trauma. I think it's the nature of the society we're in that seeks to frighten us all the time, that seeks to just instill fear through the media. We've got this culture of, making people feel bad about themselves through the beauty and the health magazines and the plastic surgery and the and this kind of thing. So I'm sort of getting my head around the fact. I think all of us, everyone has some sort of trauma, right? But I know that you in particular, you went through quite a serious incident. I know because I was just listening to a bit of it. Are you all right to talk about that?
Absolutely, yeah. It's a funny one because I've spoke about it quite a bit in the past, but only after a couple of beers and if anyone's asked about it. But it was never really addressed at the time, and I never sort of spoke to anyone or had any help with it afterwards. And it's only in recent times where I'm starting to feel the effects, and there's no timings for these things. There's no say on if it's going to happen, when it's going to happen. And yeah, it's only in recent years that it's kind of started to catch up with me. And it was only a few months back where I was, talking to the wife about it, because I was preparing actually for that show with Jamie on the No Excuses podcast. I was just talking through things and making sure that it's clear in my head, and just broke down. It was at the point where I was talking about when I was getting taken to hospital after the stabbing, and my mum was on duty as a casualty nurse in Lewisham Hospital, and she had to get taken to the side and told, look, you're going to have to come off duty because your son's coming in. He's coming in as a DOA, dead on arrival. You're going to have to come off duty for obvious reasons. Talking about the stabbing, the knife entering, the fight, this, that, and the other, I'm fairly okay with. But once I got to that bit and you start thinking about other people's emotions and how horrendous it must have been for them, I just broke down, and it just came from nowhere after 20 plus years. But yeah, sorry, I'm okay talking about it. It's just a particular point that now kind of sticks in my head, that it's quite funny that I've been okay talking about it. Then there was that one incident where it was like, okay, maybe there is something that needs to be addressed here.
The reason I mention it, mate, is it's like this, right? Everyone says to me, I wrote a book called Eat and Smoke. It was my first memoir, right? It pretty much covers how after the Marines, I completely lost my mental health in Hong Kong, right? Chronically addicted to crystal methamphetamine, without, kicking the arse out of it. It was all the ramifications of an upset childhood were coming back, and I was having to deal with them for the first time in my life, coming out of the secure environment of the military where everything's looked after for you. I'm there, I'm alone in Hong Kong, things are starting to go wrong. I'm relying on this drug more and more to, I'm thinking it's great and it's making me happy, blah, blah, blah. It's the same story of addiction we've all heard many times, especially with veterans. And ended up with my parents back in the UK being told, right, he needs to go. In fact, before that, mate, going back to the crying incident, in my head, I was so mentally unwell. I thought the commando crawl that we were taught to get across the rope across the canyon, I got it into my head that I had to crawl from my tenement building across a wire that went to the building on the opposite side of the Jaffe Road in Hong Kong, right? So I'm 70 meters above ground doing the old commando thing, right? And I stopped and I suddenly thought of my brother. And I suddenly thought of like how much we loved each other, he's my best mate. We went through all this shit as kids together, we went to one primary school where they had a rule that the big kids had to be in the big kids playground and the little kids were in the little, and you weren't allowed to like interact. Well, we're going through a massive divorce. It's my parents have been separated about 3 times already. We're at a school at the other end of the country, 300 miles away from our home. All the usual shit. New school, and I went to, I think, 6 schools. New school, new set of bullies you got to fight, all this stuff. And it was like, no fucker's going to stop me seeing my kid brother, no one. So there were steps in between the play. God, I'm getting emotional now. There was steps in between the playground. My brother used to sit on one and I'd sit on the next one, and it just felt, it felt better, everything just felt better with him there, right? So when I'm crawling across this cable, the thing that made me come to my senses, even though I was in deep in clinical psychosis, was, hang on a sec, why am I doing this? I don't have to prove fuck all to anyone. Only my kid brother, who I love more than anything else in the world, and it still brings me to tears, mate. Now, this is 20 years ago. That powerful connection with someone, that love, that there's words you can't put into words, can you? And just to finish the point, Tony. Sorry,
yeah, no.
It's just that people ask me now, "Oh, Chris, was writing Eat and Smoke therapeutic?" I'm like, what, regurgitating something that happened 20 years ago that my mind should probably have long since forgot or compartmentalized or stowed away, in some memory compartment. And then I wrote about it, and now I have to talk about it basically every single day. That's why I ask you if you're okay talking about it, because I'm constantly regurgitating that trauma, right? And I don't mind, but I do wonder if like my life should have moved on, mate, whether I'm maybe not doing myself any favors, just to sell a few books and, have an interesting podcast. Yeah. Over to you, mate. Do you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I'm still working it out as you are. And I think, most people are. I think everyone is really on that type of subject. I don't think anyone's got it fully figured out. Um, I don't think it's a waste of time. There is something to be said with not living in the past and moving forward. But the sense that I get with what you've just said there is you're not living in the past. You're not moving forward. You're using it to move forward, which is great, because a lot of the time, the best leverage we've got to be able to get ourselves to do something, or to better ourselves, or to change, to affect change, the best leverage we have usually is something external from ourselves. A lot of people, when they struggle to change, and they think to themselves, I want to change because I need to, I feel I must, and they struggle with it because they're telling themselves that that's the right thing to do, they'll be a better person. But as soon as they start thinking about someone else, so if, for example, the reason they need to change is because they're acting in a particular way that's affecting their family, and it's not a nice home environment through the way that they're dealing with things for their their wife, their husband, their children. As soon as they start thinking about other people, then that creates a bit more leverage for them to be able to move forward and say, okay, right, enough's enough. It's just strange, isn't it, how human beings work? We've got more chance of changing the way we are if we think about how it's affecting someone else than it does ourselves. So yeah, to answer your question, I haven't got it figured out. I don't think anyone really has. But yeah, as long as it's being used as leverage for something good and for you to be moving forward, and it's something that you ultimately can go to bed at night and and be happy with, then it's all good in my eyes.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. I haven't gone off on a tangent too much, have I?
Mate, you're brilliant. This is all stuff, let's be honest. I say this quite a lot. Like, my parents' generation would never be having this conversation. Whoa, no way. This would be lift up the carpet, sweep it all under, pretend it doesn't happen, go and try and be middle class, because then you'll be good. That short synopsis there. But, all that was good for them didn't really help the offspring to make sense of this very complex world, which shouldn't be as complex as it is, because the rules, I know you found the simple rules to life, they're actually really bloody simple. Smile, do a bit of moderate exercise, eat well, be nice to people. Oh, and be grateful that we've got this beautiful chance in this amazing experiment, because it's incredible. And turn off mainstream media, folks, but let's not go there.
It's too much, isn't it? And I think it's quite funny. I'm a big believer in balance, and everything in moderation, and being balanced with stuff. And something I've thought of recently is, as much as people might think that military guys, especially in in certain roles, have got it quite hard with the things that have been seen and experienced. Well, actually, that's, I think, balanced out with the training, because something that just keeps rebounding around my head whenever sort of I'm having a down day, just to get perspective on things, is to simplify it. And it goes back to that old saying that anyone that served in the military will know, is do the basics well. That's all that needs to be done. And it goes across so many different genres, doesn't it? So, you look at an Olympian, you look at anyone who's highly successful in their career or in their life. Not everything has to be monetized or in business terms, but You know, success has got lots of different reasons, but anyone who's successful in whatever it may be, they do the basics, but they just do it really well. So that really helps me when it's, oh my God, this is going on. I've got this happening. It's like, right, forget all about that. Just what is close by me? What's the closest crocodile to the boat, if you like? What do I actually need to worry about? And just try and simplify it, and then go from there. Yeah, big believer in that. You know, there's too many distractions in this world, but if you just try and simplify things and look at what is it that I can do, you know, don't try and do things that are out of your control, because let's face it, most things are out of our control, aren't they?
Yes. I guess it's why Limpston it's not a bad package, Limpston, because everything's planned. You know, do you remember they put the training program up on the board for the next week, and you'll go out. All I ever did was take literally day by day, right? I'm in a fortunate position that I never considered going home ever. It was that for me, my home life. I tried that for 18 years and it wasn't very pleasant, right? So I just go and read that orders, right? What am I doing? What am I doing? I mean, to me, it was like, what we're doing today, or obviously tomorrow. You know, plan a little bit in ahead, right? 6 mile speed march. Chris, just pass that fucking thing. Just, you know, head, just, it's gonna hurt. Just pass it. And life's different, isn't it? When you run a business and you're trying to do the media thing, and you're trying to run your social, you know, your home life, your family life, your social life. You're trying to get your bloody Instagram posts up and all this kind of stuff. And then the housework's building up, and then it's, oh, there's a problem with a car. That's going to take like half a day out of my schedule. I don't really have. But Limpston, it's just there for you, innit? Just as long as you do those things, you're going to get the end results. Look, and don't get injured on the way.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of guys struggle with, isn't it? When they, you know, when they leave, is what do I do? You know, a lot of guys find that if they haven't got that structure, as disciplined as what's the word, you know, the perception is, you know, yes, you know, it takes a lot of discipline, but there's a lot to be said with a lot of disciplined people have actually still got that support there and that guidance. And it takes quite a lot of strength and quite a lot of, I wouldn't say so much strength, but time and understanding and a bit of figuring out, you know, to sort of find your way through not having someone sort of telling you what to do, not having someone else write out the orders for you. You know, and I think a lot of guys do struggle with that when they first come out. So it's a really good point, actually, and the source of quite a few problems, I'm sure.
Let's go back, Tony, and just talk about you being attacked. Something you said, I'm just saying this for the record, is when I spoke to Simon Weston, he was being pushed through the hospital back in the UK, and obviously severely burned and disfigured. And the nurse pushed him past his mother and his auntie, and his mum looked down at him and went, "Oh, you know, look at him," right? And Simon went, "Mum, it's me." And he said he'd never forget that, you know, the shock on her face. That rung a bell with what you just said, Tony.
Yeah, it's yeah. So, sorry, yeah. So it's not until you think about the feelings of other people, really, that that it sort of starts cutting you up. We're a lot easier with dealing what happens to ourselves. It's like you know, but I think it resonates a bit more once you start sort of seeing what it's like to other people you love.
You stood up to a bully and smacked him one. And then as you were walking through a shopping centre one day with your mate, his gang, as it were, had basically blockaded the shopping centre. You're there going, hang on, is this about us? Maybe you know what to do, and you nearly lost your life as a result of the events that unfolded. Shall we?
I didn't know that it was for me. Say that again.
Sorry, I think we're breaking up. We're breaking up there a bit. So, yeah, and as a result of this attack on you, you got stabbed several times.
Yeah, that's right. It's it was 9 stab wounds in one sitting.
Bloody hell.
And it was it was quite a ferocious attack. And what aided in the guy being able to get 9 stab wounds in one go is it was a sizable gang, and they'd completely surrounded me. So as punches started getting thrown, as they started, attacking, and I was dealing what was coming at me from the front, the guy with a knife was on my blind side, but it was one of those walking canes that had the sword where you sort of can pull out the handle and it's got the sword on it. Well, it was the curved handle, so it sort of comes like at a right angle, so he could hold it like a gun almost. So then he was able to punch it in. So it was, really, really quick stabs, starting from. That's a really good question, next, or something I haven't thought of. Where did he start? Because it was 3 stab wounds to the leg on the front of the thigh, 3 on the back of the leg, sort of in the arse area, sort of very close to the lower back actually, and then 3 wounds up here. And I think he was high on something. One memory I've got is the look in his eyes, and it was almost just like they were black and very glassy. So afterwards, I was told that most of them were high on something. So he was rolled up. I think he went out. If it wouldn't have been me, it would have been someone else. And yeah, 9 stab wounds in a matter of seconds, and that was it. Lights out. Fell on the floor with that amount of blood flowing out in one go. I hit the deck like a sack of bricks.
Mate, that must have been, freaking traumatic for the bloody shoppers walking by as well, wasn't it? Yeah, imagine you're out in the shopping centre and some gang attacks someone and bloody stabs someone 9 times. Your friend tried.
Yeah, it was during. So yeah, it's we have got a slight delay here with the. I can hear on my roof the rain coming down, so that's probably not going to help with the signal. But yeah, unbelievable. It was sort of mid-ish afternoon, so the shopping centre was packed with families and mums out shopping. Not that just mums do shopping, by the way. It was packed with people. And yeah, so the one friend that I was with, he was dragged away. He was maced or CS'd with some kind of spray in his eyes, but he stuck around. You know, there wasn't nothing he could do. It happened so quickly. There was a lot of them, and yeah, he took my belt off and used it as a tourniquet because he didn't know that the wounds were up here. I didn't know that I had wounds up here as well. He couldn't see the wounds on the back of the leg. But you know what? He'd done his best, and I defy anyone really at that age that we were to sort of keep as level-headed as he did. You know, with no training. He stuck by me, and still managed after what must have been a horrific scene, because there was a hell of a lot of blood. People have described it as a river of blood. And he stuck with me, yeah, and still tried to help. Once the ambulance crew turned up, they, you know, he must have felt so bad, because one memory I've got is they sort of were really, really abrupt. Who the fuck put this on? Because as soon as they saw the wounds above, you know, the general rule of thumb with, or the big rule with a tourniquet is it always goes above where the wound was, or where the wound is. But he didn't see the other wounds, so they quickly took that off, and also very quickly saw that if we don't move this lad quickly, then, you know, we're going to lose him.
Are you still in touch with that friend?
Absolutely, yeah. Lifelong friend. Yeah, he was. I think he's still dealing with his own stuff with it as well, because he was actually. Was he arrested? I'm not sure if he was arrested, but he was detained, and he was interrogated quite harshly. And I've only found this out from him himself over a couple of beers, not that long ago. And I was like, wow, why didn't you tell me this before? He was interrogated quite harshly. They were they had to cover all bases, and they didn't know, like the police didn't know what the score was. So they were going at him, you know, hammer and tongs, you know, you did it, you know who did it, you know, what was your involvement? It must have been horrendous for him.
Jesus, yeah,
but yeah, still very good friend.
And the lad that actually stuck the knife in, did he get prosecuted?
No, the CCTV camera, it was all caught on CCTV, the whole thing. But the picture was too grainy. They couldn't make their faces out. So they did manage to track down who'd done it. And they did go to court. They did end up with a day in court. But it got thrown out of court because the CCTV was blurry. And there it is. That, you know, just, I hope to God that he didn't end up, you know, doing something similar to someone else or worse.
Yeah, of course. And I heard that you were always dead set on joining the Marines.
Yeah, from as far back as I can remember, joining the military, where it was just something that was almost like a calling. I was kind of pushed towards the Marines because once my parents sort of saw, right, okay, it looks like we've got one of those cases, because my first words were military related. You know, just any toys, any clothes, everything had to be military, and it wasn't going away. You know, it followed me right the way through into my teenage years. So once my parents had realised what they had on their hands, they were like, right, okay, so we're going to have no choice in this. He's going to join the military. Let's try and sort of, you know, steer him in a direction, rightfully or wrongfully. I don't know. but in a way, I'm glad they did. And it was what the seed that they'd sowed was, if you're going to join the military, go for the Marines. And the paras all love this. They said, go for the Marines because they're the best. So if you're going to do it, be the best. And that just stuck in my head. So the Marines it was.
Mm-hmm. You're the opposite of me. I never thought about them. Well, I did as I started to realize I failed all my exams at school. And I joined up for a bet. Bet with my mate bet. My mate bet me I couldn't join the Marines. I was like, I bloody can.
So, brilliant. Wake up in Lympstone like, oh shit.
Yeah, it was, well, I was a bit of an angry young man. I don't mean like aggressive, but just, things hadn't been good, and I didn't appreciate him telling me what I could and couldn't do. And he just passed the PRC, or the PRMC as it is now. And he did make it sound quite wonderful, I have to say, or quite adventurous. Yes. Yeah, he was. I don't want to say the guy's name, but he was on his PRMC with a guy called John, a Welsh chap, who then went on to go SB. And just listening to these two buddied up on the PRMC, and from what it just sounds like they both smashed it, And I listened to him telling this story, and my mind started thinking then, I could picture myself doing this. I could do 50 push-ups. I can do the pull-ups. Not sure about the running because it wasn't something I'd done. And then you start reading the recruitment brochures and you're picturing yourself as one of these guys. When I think like that, Tone, it gives me the same feeling as when I was 17. I just get that feeling again, like I'm excited and I can see something here. But how long after this attack then did you join? How long did it take you to recover? And how did they keep you alive in the hospital?
So in the hospital, I was in the hospital for quite a while. I died 3 times on the operating table. As soon as they got me into casualty, and it's quite vivid memories. I was still awake, a little bit lightheaded from the loss of blood. But they had to put a chest drain in. I can remember the nurse or the doctor, the consultant, whoever it was working on me, had said, look, we haven't got time for local anaesthetic. And he explained to me the procedure for the chest drain. And I can vividly remember thinking, why are you telling me? Just get on with it. He basically said, look, we've got to put a chest drain in because your lungs collapsed. So it's going to help you breathe. We've got to make an incision in between your ribs here, and I'll have to widen it a little bit with my little finger, and then we'll put the tube in. I was like, fine, just get it. At that point, I must have known, I was kind of at peace with it. So I can remember not having any fear at all. It really didn't bother me because I thought, well, there's nothing to be worried about, because if they don't do what they need to do, that's it. I'm gone. I must have felt that I only had minutes left, because sure enough, as soon as the chest drain went in, I died for the first time. And then it goes to accounts from other people that was there. My older brother, my mum, who came in. My mum was holding it together a bit, I can remember, but she was crying, but she was holding it together. When my brother came in, my older brother, he was uncontrollably crying. Bless you. He was
Excuse me.
They come in threes. I'm waiting for the third one. They come in threes, apparently.
Hey, you don't get this on the Joe Rogan podcast.
But he was uncontrollably crying. He could hardly talk. And looking back on it now, you kind of put the pieces together. And my mum had told him, you need to go in there because it's very likely the last time that you're going to be able to see him. And that's the last thing I remember. And then going, so my body was convulsing off of the table. So that was me crashing. That was me dying for the first time. And at a rate of knots, they wheeled me out of the room to theatre, where they operated on me because the lung was punctured. The knife had scratched my heart on the way in. Plus, obviously, I had 9 holes on me that they had to attend to. And I died a further 2 times on the key. I was in ICU for quite a while as well.
We've paused a bit, mate.
I'm just thinking of the other questions. So that happened in the length of time that it took to recover, and if I had any help afterwards. I didn't have any help afterwards at all. There was no psychological help. It took me. Well, I tell you what, I'm still recovering now. The physical injuries probably took about 6 months. Once I'd learned to walk on the leg again, because there was quite extensive nerve damage as well that was caused. That was one battle, but I mentioned earlier, because I didn't have any help with it, it's actually now starting to affect me more than it did back then. So yeah, I'm still recovering, to be honest with you. What was the other question?
Well, it doesn't matter too much. There's fascinating stuff you're telling me here, mate. I mean, once you've experienced trauma, especially at a young age, it kind of stays with you, doesn't it? You then develop the strategies to manage it. Even when I'm like doing a podcast, there's stuff in my head I'm having to manage, because chemicals start flowing. It just affects you on a daily, affects you on a constant sort of basis, right? Our connection here, Tony, keeps freezing. I don't know if you're seeing this. Do I seem okay? Oh, 1 second. Sorry, friends at home, we're having a bit of a technical glitch. So yeah, what I was trying to say is trauma is something, I think it stays with you. And then as you go through life, you then develop the strategies to kind of deal, to kind of deal with it. Where were you living, Tony? Am I detecting like a London accent? Oh, frozen again. Oh, hang on, you're back.
Yeah. So from London, you frozen again. I think I might need to. I think I might need to switch my router on and off.
Okay, 1 sec. So again, for our friends at home, just a quick recap, because we've had a technical glitch and I'm not sure what you got and what you didn't. And I'll leave this to my producer, Ben, to sort out. Thank you, Ben. So Tony and I were just saying that Tony was saying he's coming to terms, he's having to deal with the post traumatic stress of his attack. And I was raising the point that, you know, it's hard to know like when you've dealt with it, because trauma is something, it like doesn't go, you know, the files in your brain don't seem to go away, but what we do is we develop the strategies to deal with it so it doesn't affect our life in a constant downward sort of spiral. And then I was asking you, Tony, where you lived, because the incident you described, and we're a similar age, I'm guessing I'm probably a bit older than you, because I'm older than everybody these days. But where I live, we had the old, we had a lot of dust ups. We had the football gang that they could do pretty vicious stuff, right? But they were like a one off. It was the TCE in Plymouth, the central element, right? Rumor was they'd slash people up with razor blades and stuff. It wasn't very nice. But the incident you described, mate, that sounds like inner city, you know, young men who are not very bloody happy with their lot, lacking male role models possibly. So yeah, that's why I asked where you lived, where this thing took place.
Yeah, so London, South London, and it was in Lewisham, and Lewisham Shopping Centre, and it was Lewisham Hospital I was taken to. Lewisham Hospital was where I was born as well, funny enough. But I don't think that really means anything, but yeah, it's quite, you know.
Is that far from Bromley, do you know?
Not far,
Yeah.
not far. Yeah, Bromley's 15, 20 minutes, well, depending on traffic.
Yeah, that's where I was born.
Oh, okay, so you are from London yourself then?
Southeast London. It's just we left when I was about 4, I think. So I've only got kind of, I remember one time in Bromley, I decided to put oil on the wheels of my tricycle, right? This is how young I was. So I went in the garage and I got a can of petrol out. And I poured this petrol all over my tricycle, right? I'm 3 years old. And then when my mum found out what I did, she told me that the fire brigade were coming round to have a word with me. If you want to traumatize a 3-year-old child, tell them the emergency services are on their way to speak to them, right? Yes. So yes, hello everyone in Bromley and Lewisham. Yes, so bloody hell. Your brother's in the hospital. It must have been, I mean, that must still affect him to this day.
I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does, because it you know, it can't be easy. It's really weird, isn't it? Because, you know, I and this isn't in a bravado way at all. It's quite strange, but I'm in a way I'm glad that I was on that side of it, if that makes sense. It's really weird. It's not as much heartache than, you know, thinking about what's happened to yourself. I can't imagine what it would have been like to have been looking down on a loved one that's in such a state, and about to die, and through, you know, such violent circumstances. It must have been horrendous. They arrested my dad because of his background. So my dad's a former professional fighter, and he had a bit of a checkered past. He got into a bit of the wrong crowd, and before I came along, his boxing career was cut short. He got into the wrong crowd. Was a bit of a name for himself in South London, and he ended up being quite known to the police. So as soon as they put, you know, the connections together, and found out, you know, oh, Jesus, right, we best get a handle on this, because, you know, their bodies are going to start piling up potentially, is what they might have been thinking. So as soon as my dad got to the hospital, they actually arrested him, or detained him, and said to him, look, it's for your own good, you know, because you're going to do something silly, and for the safety of other people, because we know that you're going to go on the warpath. So again, yeah, it must have been horrendous for everyone all round, really. I don't feel, do you know what? It must have been horrendous for the guy that done it as well, because no one gets born with a knife in their hand. You know, what sort of life had he had? What was his experiences? You know, what caused him to get to such a point that, because he was 20, I think he was 20, 21 years old. I was 15 years old at the time. You know, how do you get to such a point that you're an adult and, you know, you stab a child effectively almost to death? So that kind of helps me sort of in recent life, if you like, because you can't just get angry about it. And it's actually answering a question that someone put out there from the last podcast that I'd done with Jamie. And someone had said, oh yeah, I'd love to see an episode 2, or for Tony to sort of, you know, have another podcast and speak to someone else to find out if he caught up with the bastards that done it. Well, I'd be lying if I'd say there wasn't a time where my mind was in that place. But I can assure you now, the place that my mind's at with that in particular is not of hate. If anything, it's of sorrow, because everyone's got their own story, and no one gets born evil, I don't think. And it's all to do with, you know, the chances and the opportunities that you have in life. So I can't imagine things were good for that lad to be able to end up in that state.
Yes. Massive part of moving forwards is developing empathy, isn't it? To understand situations for what they actually are, not what we perceive they are. And the old school mentality is, no, you got to hate that guy for life. And if you see him, you got to bloody give him, and let's get him in. Well, when you understand karma, I reckon, Tony, you know, I'm not talking about karma the way people use it. Like, if I steal a Mars bar in a shop, I'm going to go and step in dog shit, or, you know, that's not the way karma works. Karma means if you don't get a good balance in your life, you're constantly going to have experiences that, you know, it's like I've done so many things in my life where I thought I was looking for happiness or doing the right thing or whatever it might be. And of course, that's why my life's always been so up and down. Is I'll tell a little story of a fight I had, if that's okay. So on one of my parents' numerous, I think they'd finally got divorced. I was living in a place in Cornwall, but my school was in Devon, and all the kids in my village, they went to the local school in Cornwall, right? It is comprehensive now. So we're about 13 or 14. And every day our bus would get in. We had to get the local bus home because all the kids went to the other school. But there's about 5 of us that would come in on this local bus just as the school bus from the other school came in. And one day we got off the bus and a load of kids got off the other school's bus, and they're like, "Oh, you fucking wankers!" And again, angry young man. I'm just turning around like, "Yeah, you know, fuck off." And my sister's like, "Chris, shut up, shush." I'm like, no one talks to me like that, you know. And the one guy shouts, "We'll see you tonight." I'm like, okay, right. So fast forward to that evening. It was about 6 o'clock. we're on our estate, and it didn't help that our estate was a new estate, right? It wasn't rich housing or anything, but it was a new estate, and all these kids came from the council estate up, like at the top of the village, right? And down they come, mate. It was like a mob. It was like something out of like the film Grease or something, like, you know, the gangs, right? And the big hard lad, fortunately, had the decency, let's say, to like stay out of it and just let us two fight. And this guy come down the road, right? You fuck it up, bang! I hit him as hard as I could, Tony, right? And I wasn't a fighter. I'd done a bit of judo, which I was quite good at school for a year, but I wasn't a boxer or anything. I didn't like look forward to fighting. But I knew I had to. We were toe to toe, and that was it. And I just punched him and shut him up. And then he went, right, whoa, stop. I'm going to take my jacket off. Right? So he took his jacket off and he gave it to this big hard geezer. He went, right, okay. And then he hit me, right? And so I hit him back, bang. And you know when a punch really connects, and I could feel that I've given him a massive black eye, and his lips already bleeding. But give the guy credit, he fought back as hard as I fought. He fought. Neither of us were backing down. But the funny thing was, he's like, right, stop. Take my cardigan off. Right? and there's someone in the crowd, right? Because there's this crowd of our kids all were like behind me, and their kids were, but someone in the crowd went, is he going to take all his clothes off? Right?
Brilliant. In his head, he's probably using it as an excuse. This is why I'm not winning. I've still got clothes on.
He was just like, you know, every time I hit him so hard, he needed to get his senses back. So he'd like take a bit of clothing off. But anyway, cut long story short, at the end, the fight just went out of me, mate. You know, you feel it when it just dropped out of you. Unfortunately, at that stage, a neighbor came out and went, what are you boys doing? Stop it now, right? And back in those days, we used to listen to kids listen to adults, right?
Yeah.
It was like, and the guy like shoved his hand out and went, yeah, let's call, you know, should we stop it there or whatever? And I'm like, yeah, all right. Anyway, fast forward, he's a bloody good guy, you know. We've been mates to this day. Every time I see him, we have to go through the protocol of him apologizing to me. He's like, Chris, I'm really sorry, mate. I'm really sorry. Ian, if you ever get a chance to watch this, hello, mate. And he's a lovely bloke, right? And I'm just saying it to highlight we all change, don't we? You know, we all change. We're all a product of our environment, our circumstance, and as you said, Tony, until we understand it for what it is rather than what we think it is, we can't move forward ourselves, can we?
No, exactly. And I do hope that if he's still out there, that he's changed his ways. You know, it could quite easily have been me who went down that path. You know, my reaction to the stabbing afterwards could have been like, well, you know, that's how I need to be then. I need to, you know, start stabbing people before I get stabbed again. It's like if you're like a bully, generally you'll go one way or the other. You'll either end up hating bullies or you'll become a bully yourself, because the majority of bullies were actually bullied quite a bit themselves. Which again has calmed me down. That thought and empathy and just, you know, looking at it a little bit deeper has also helped calm me down before, when looking at a bully or seeing someone being bullied and instantly getting angry. I kind of then get calmed down with the thought of, well, hold on a minute. There's a very good chance that they were bullied to such an extent themselves when they were younger to actually cause them to be a bully. So it kind of shifts from anger to then actually feeling, sorry for the person, and is it too late? Can they be helped? First and foremost, it needs to stop. Don't get me wrong. I'm not all wishy-washy and be like, oh, be a bit more thoughtful of bullies. Not at all. Stop it hard now. And if they need to be sort of, have a hard line taken to them, then so be it. But there's definitely more to it, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is the irony of when we were young at school, is the kid that was brought out in front of the class and spanked in front of the class. Ironically, like, he's the lad that has to go home to a bloody broken family, a father that's on the drink or whatever, and he's not getting the love at home and this manifests in the child's behavior, doesn't it? Because, well, it just does. It's probably another conversation again. And yeah, and all this knowledge, Tony, it's been hidden from us for years, which is why I love these chats. It's why that my son, I'll tell him I love him like 50 times a day. He gets fed up with me kissing him. It might surprise people to know that, I didn't get hugged as a kid. My mum occasionally, dad once, right? I had to instigate that in my family after let's use the word recovered, or after I came through my experience of chronic addiction, and I started to do what we're discussing now, which is put the jigsaw together, think about other people. Why was my childhood the way it was? What did these people have to go through in their lives in order that they behave that way? Oh my God, they're suffering trauma, aren't they? I'd never thought of that before, right? Because things were always just so black and white. And yeah, sorry, I lost my train of thought. But yeah, my son, I don't mind to show him all my faults, which I do all the time.
It's a perfect example.
Yeah, I want him to know
of what I mentioned. You are that. Yeah, absolutely. Because you could have gone one way or the other. My wife, for example, was abused as a child. She had a really, really tough childhood, and she's the most loving person, annoyingly so, because if ever I'm having a bit of a downtime or I'm a bit grumpy, she's so good at staying calm and being nice, and it's like, no, stop being nice, I want to be angry. But she's the most loving person to a fault, and so much love to give. And like you say, where some people might be embarrassed to show their love and to kiss their kids and it's just not there. It's not on her radar. She's got no issues with showing her love, and she could quite easily have gone the other way.
Yeah, very much so. In that respect, society is becoming a better place. There's not so many kind of false taboos and this sort of. Oh, hang on a sec. Stuff's happening. That's the very first time something's popped up over Zoom. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. Old men in technology, eh?
Still got me? You still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I've still got you loud and clear.
Good. Something's going on today with our technology, but hey ho, this is the world we're moving into.
We've got some bad weather spread over the country at the moment, haven't we? So I'm sure that's not helping.
Yeah, that's ironic, isn't it? That Marines are supposed to be good at dealing with bad weather, and yet it's fucked us both now. Let's move on then and talk about when were you at Lympstone, Tone?
So I was at Lympstone early 2000.
Wow. So 12 years after I was.
Yeah, so I was fairly. I joined up quite late, so there was a bit of a gap because after the stabbing, and I try not to make it such a focal point, if you like, but at the end of the day, it is sort of one of those main points that you refer to as you look through your life. So I was 15 when that happened, and I shouldn't really feel a way about referring to it, because it did have a big effect, because it wasn't addressed. I didn't have any help afterwards. It was horrendous trying to get my head around sort of how to be afterwards. I was scared to go out the house. I was scared to be around people. I was constantly thinking I was going to get stabbed again if I was in a crowd on a bus with people sitting behind me. So yeah, it's difficult not to refer to it. But I was 15 at the time, and I didn't join the military until I was sort of in my early to mid 20s. So there was quite a bit of a gap there. I did go off the rails. There was substance abuse involved in that, in a city, getting up to the wrong stuff, in with the wrong crowds. So, me going back to saying I could have gone one way or the other, I did actually, I did very nearly, well, not nearly, but I did kind of go that way, but luckily not to the extent where something really stupid happened, if that makes sense. I come to the realization that I need to get a grip and sort of, there's more to this than just running around the streets causing havoc. So I applied myself and eventually put in for Marine training.
Wow. So the year 2000, that's when training got really, really easy, isn't it?
Yeah. Apparently, they held their hands all the way through.
Sorry, I had to get that in there.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was. I think it's even. I was just before it had a big change again, because I was before the time. I think they put an extra 2 weeks on to teach GPS training and so on and so forth, because things were really gearing up for Afghan. So it was becoming more operational specific. They were throwing a few more things in. But yeah, it's even in my time, it's quite different now what I hear to what it was even in my time.
Yeah, it's a forever changing landscape. Now they've changed. This is just a learning thing for all of us, especially the youngsters listening that want to join the Marines. It used to be 99% need not apply, right? Because only the 1% are born with it, right? Or brought up to have that mindset. Now it's something like 99% need to apply, and we'll make you into that 1%, right? This is advertising promotion, isn't it? They've cleverly changed it now to up their recruitment numbers. Now actually anyone can apply,
Yeah. Everyone can do it.
Yes. It is an age-old argument, isn't it? Does training get easier or harder? And well, it's maybe a subject for another day, and going to upset someone if we talk about that.
It's a big subject, isn't it? Yeah, and like you say, verging on political.
Yes. How did you find Lympstone then? What was it like to rock up? Did they call it induction when you were there, or was it called foundation?
I think foundation, or do you know what? I can't even remember. I think it was foundation block. Yeah. I think it was foundation.
I just found out yesterday on a podcast with a wonderful chap called Rich Jones, ex-tanky. He was in prison and he said, yeah, when I was in induction, I was like, you were in induction in prison? I said, I was in induction in the military. What does that tell us?
Yeah. Well, I suppose it's all about conditioning and getting ready, the first steps to getting ready to what's to come, I suppose, and being shown what's expected of you and then sort of build on it.
Did you find training, I don't want to say easy, because I don't think anyone finds it easy, but some get through it less unscathed than others, right?
I think what helped me was being that little bit older and having some life experiences. I'm sure that did help. I'm not sure if the 16-year-old Tony would have done as good as the 20-year-old Tony. It certainly does help when you need to dig deep and you can sort of pull on. You've got more to draw on, I think. In a kind of a way, it makes me respect the younger lads, and it makes you think, wow, you really are going to go on to be successful in whatever you want to do, because if you can find what's needed at such a young age, then you've obviously got something inside you naturally. Not to say that I didn't have that as well, but I certainly had a leg up, I think, with being that little bit older. It's still horrendous though.
Yeah, I've said this quite a lot, mate. Is I struggled with the speed marching. That was the only thing I really struggled with in training, and I never failed. I never failed any, because I just wouldn't give up, right? But they hurt, right? One time I got ordered into the rat wagon because I'd developed shin splints, and I was grimacing so much that the corporal went, "Fraud, get in the rat wagon." I was, all right, corporal. When he turned around, I just kept running with the troop. I went to the back of the troop and I kept running at the back. When he turned the second time and saw I'd ignored his order, he wasn't very happy. So I had to get in a wagon then, right? But other than that, I used to just hang in there, and it was freaking the hardest thing I've ever done. And yet at 50 years old, I did a quadruple Ironman and, ran the length of the country. And it was, okay, I did get a shin splint running the length of the country, but it didn't stop me. And I just remember it's so much easier at this age. The mindset is there.
I'm a big believer in the want as well, if it's something that you want to do. And I touched on it when I was talking to Jamie on the No Excuse podcast. And if it's something that you truly want to do, then you'll find a way. You'll find something, as you're digging down to search for whatever it is you need to find to keep you going on. You will find something. Your brain will give you something, because you have that perception of, this is what I want and I can do it. And it's not just us. We're not superhumans. We're not overly special than anyone else. It's just that want. So, say a doctor, with the years of training and how intensive that is, 5 years with all of that written work, the long hours on doing the placements in the hospital as you're training as a doctor. it's because those that make it, it's because they want to do it. So for me, that's such a big thing, because anyone who genuinely wants to do something, but it's a bit worried if they should or not, or if they should, if they could, if they can, I really want to do this, but I'm just not sure if I'm going to be able to. Well, actually, all you need really is the want. If you want to do something, then you can do it. For me, that's the biggest thing. And it's rightfully or wrongfully, we could end up with loads of comments, against that. But one of the biggest things that sticks in my mind is the reason I've been able to do the things that I've done throughout my life, whether it be Marines, whether it be the SBS, whether it be being able to come up with a new business with a unique product. I wanted to do them. I wanted to join the Marines. I wanted to be a Special Forces operator, and I wanted to have my own business. It just so happened to end up being a unique product, an idea that I had. But it's all things that I wanted to do, and it's just doing them, really. Yeah.
Let's talk about your special.
The want is the biggest thing.
Yeah, let's talk about your Special Forces route, because that's a very brave thing. Brave probably isn't the right word, but you really have to want to do that. I mean, you can't half-ass around and join the Special Forces. It doesn't work like that. You've got to know that when you hit that selection, you've got the goods and you've done the training and you can read the map. And obviously the majority of people still fall by the wayside. So I've just got a huge amount of respect for people that can be that young and have that mindset. How old were you when you decided? How long did you do in the Corps before you went SB, or as a Marine, I should say?
About 2.5 years, which again it really does reinforce the point that I was making with the want. Before I joined the Marines, SB was the way that I wanted to go. And I kind of said to myself that, okay, if I join the Marines, it will be for the ultimate goal of going SF and as quickly as I can. I had no real interest of staying in the Marines. So really from day one, the goal was to go SB. So I think what helped me was ignorance and not being fully educated in what it may entail, because I installed the want so firmly that it was stronger. That passion to want to do it was stronger than anything I found out afterwards. So once I did start really finding out what it entailed, with how switched on you have to be when you're tired, how much rope you're actually given to hang yourself, you don't get the motivation, you have actually really got to be able to do the things that's asked of you, and yeah, the passion for wanting to do that was so great by that time that none of that really sort of fazed me as such. But I wasn't clouded to it. I wasn't blind to it. I still fully realized that this is serious, and I seriously have to get better at navigation and whatever else it is that I could do to make sure that I'm as prepared as possible. And that really sort of manifested itself once I got to 4-2. So I was based at 4-2 out of Lympstone. And I had to hold myself back from telling people and telling the other lads that, look, my aim is to not be here. Is to be here for as short amount of time as possible because I want to go SF. Because anyone that I did tell, I'd get laughed at. I'd get told I was stupid. I'd get told I was unrealistic. I'd get told that I was, I don't know, a bit of a bullshitter. You know, people are like, what? Can you hear him? He's only been in 5 minutes and he's already talking about SF. Because predominantly, you know, you have to have 5, 6, 7 years experience. They generally wanted someone with combat experience as well. I know that it changed quite regularly over the years, and they would change their requirement depending on what was happening and how they had to recruit. But generally, it was you needed a certain amount of experience before applying. So when the sergeant major was constantly trying to get me to go SIGs because he had to get his quota up, I kept saying, no, sir, sorry, SF is the way that I want to go. Stop being so stupid. It's SIGs you want, isn't it? No, I don't want SIGs. I was constantly getting, but I annoyed them enough that they eventually said, you know what, it's yours to lose then. And they loaded me on the briefing course, which is the first thing you have to pass before getting loaded onto selection. And that was just after 2 years of being in the unit. I was effectively a civvy still, really.
Had you been on operations by this time?
No.
Wow.
Again, it was all driven by passion. So they could see on the briefing course, Jesus Christ, this is an absolute ball of fire. And that's why we're going to load you on selection. Be aware that if it wasn't for that, you wouldn't be, because you haven't got enough experience. You've only been in for a couple of years. You've got no operational experience, but we can see that you want this so much and that you're serious. They could see it in my eyes. That I got loaded onto selection. The other thing that really motivated me was the sergeant major said, on one condition, I'm going to load you on the briefing course on one condition, that if you fail it, I'm drafting you to Scotland. Bearing in mind, we just moved from London to the married quarters in Plymouth. So we were kind of loving life, because Plymouth compared to London was beautiful. You got all the moors and the countryside almost. It was beautiful. And I was like, wow, that's motivation. I do not want to have to move my family up to Scotland, where I'm probably going to end up doing some kind of guard duty for most of the time that I'm there. Went home, explained that to my wife, and she said, okay, well, I'm going to put one up on that. If you don't pass and you get drafted to Scotland, I'm not coming with you. So I thought, Jesus Christ, it's all to play for. But you know what? It didn't fade. I thought, I'm going to put that to the back of my head. I really want this. So I'm the best chance I've got of succeeding is to just keep my mind on the fact of that this is what I want. The one thing that did worry me was injury. I knew that it was never really going to be an issue with me thinking I can't do this and I want to give up. So yeah, it was injury, but I was lucky. I didn't have any major injuries at all.
Did you do the joint SAS SBS section?
Yeah, so it was joint selection, and some of the best soldiers that I've ever worked with were from the parachute regiment and various other army regiments. For that, it's absolutely fantastic, because there was kind of equal amounts of Marines to army lads, and it was a joint selection.
And if it's a joint selection, Tony, how do they incorporate the diving bit in it, or the swimming bit? Are they interested in that, or is that put aside?
No, that's continuation training. So once you pass selection, so you've got your phases of selection, which is the hills phase, then onto the jungle, resistance to interrogation, escape and evasion, then do a bit of continuation training still with the Hereford lads, because you then get badged at the end. If you're lucky enough to pass after the escape and evasion and resistance to interrogation phase, you then get badged. You've then got to do a period afterwards of continuation training, where you go up to Hereford, you do all of your close quarter battles, your CQB training in the killing house. Hereford, because of their budget, we even had an ex-Olympian, an ex-Olympic sharpshooter who taught us handgun skills on the range, so on and so forth.
Wow.
So you're still together at that point, plus all of the car drills where they've got a drive-on range, where you can actually drive onto the range and practice doing your car drills if you come up to an illegal VCP and you've got to start, get out the car, start shooting at the threat and pull back. So you're still together at that point. Once you've done that, you then go your separate ways. So the Hereford lads then go to their squadrons and the SB lads go to their squadrons. And you're still on your continuation training. So that's then when the diving takes place for the pool lads, and whatever continuation training it is that they do at Hereford, whether it be the skydiving, so on and so forth.
Yeah, the reason I mention it is I used to know a little bit about how selection was for SB before they amalgamated the two, right? Friend of mine, Steve, everyone will know, if I say SV, everyone will know who I'm on about. We're in Belfast together, and he I think he joined SB twice actually, and was also an ML in the middle of it. And I remember him saying he didn't get on with the diving, right? And it seems a lot of expense to put someone all the way through the selection and the jungle and escape and evasion, only to find out at the end of it that maybe, they got claustrophobia or underwater or something, or they can't get on with the breathing. If that happens, do they keep the guy, but he just does another role, or are you out of there?
There's actually not at all. No, you're still used, absolutely, and there's actually quite a few guys that are non-divers, for various different reasons. For me, myself, I was a non-diver. I ended up being a non-diver because with Afghan kicking off, as soon as I got to the squadron, we were still supposed to be on continuation training, and the dive course being one of those. There was a couple of us that got picked to not go on dive course because we needed to go straight out to Afghan for manpower issues and to bolster up the squadrons with injuries and deaths. And I was one of those guys. So I pretty much went straight out to Afghan from selection.
Wow.
Which was quite tough.
I'm going to guess the other guy was Stephen Burns, wasn't it?
But yeah, there's quite a few guys.
Oh.
Say again?
I was going to say we got a bit of a freeze thing going on.
Oh.
I'm just going to talk through it. The other guy would have been Stephen Burns, because Steve's been on the podcast. And when I said to him, how did you get on with the diving? He said, I didn't do it, Chris. And I was gobsmacked. An SBS guy that didn't.
He knows his ears.
Was that what it was? Yeah, he said he went just.
And that's one of probably. It's probably one of the biggest reasons, I think. I don't know the numbers or the statistics behind it, but just thinking of the amount of guys that I know that didn't do or didn't complete the dive course because of perforated eardrums because of the pressure. I get a sense that that's one of the big reasons. So really, probably from the start of the SBS, the start of its life, from way back in the 1940s, they've probably been used to still having guys on that are non-divers, because let's face it, the job roles that SB have done alongside Hereford are fairly similar. It's just a method of insertion, whereas the actual conflicts themselves, we do the same stuff as far as the job role is concerned. It's just historically, it's different methods of insertion. So Hereford would come in from the air, we'd come in from the water. But in recent conflicts, for example, say Afghan, it's a level playing field. There was no coming in from the water. And
the RAF regiment would come in from the NAFI.
Yeah. Oh, it's like I've been in worse restaurants. I've been in worse civvy restaurants than some of the RAF NAFIs.
Yes. Yeah, when you do your paracourse and stuff, and bloody hell, the food is just like out of this world, isn't it?
Yeah.
For our friends listening, the RAF have a huge budget because each bomb that they fire from a bloody helicopter gunship or whatever costs like £1 million. So it's nothing for them to have a huge food budget as well.
Yeah. Massive budget. But just very quickly going back to Stevie Burns. Stevie Burns was on my side. I went through selection with Stevie. Absolutely great guy, top guy. He's doing some great stuff at the moment as well, isn't he? So yeah, that was nice to hear his name. Actually.
Yeah, he did say he dragged you through. I think
it's all thanks to him. I was behind him. He was dragging me through. That's right.
Yes. So Stevie Burns, for people listening, was the founder of Operation Spartan, which is a wonderful support group. You can find it on Facebook or just put it into a search engine. And it's not just for military service, it's for the blue light services as well. And they do some really good stuff. And it's also a bunch of kind of similar minded people that have found themselves struggling as many of us have. And they support each other, and they're all started running, haven't they? And they're all eating a better diet now, and they're taking action with their lives, and it's all good stuff to see. So shout out to Steve.
Absolutely, one of the most genuine people I know. I don't talk to him as much as I'd like to be honest with you. But if you're ever in trouble, he's certainly someone that you'd want in your corner for sure.
Tony, give us an idea for us Marines. How much harder is the legendary physical side of selection? So the hill work and all this kind of stuff. Can you kind of give me an idea? Because obviously I've done the 30 miler, I've done the 9 miler, 12 mile low carry, or all these things that we used to do. Is it like harder than that? Is it the same? Is it different?
It's such a good question, and I think it's going to vary massively through the individual, because a lot of it is is psychological. I would say I've had tougher times in the Marines than I did on selection because I was more mentally prepared for selection. To try and give an example, I think of the hills. At the end of the day, it's a hard course. So I think you know what it would be like. Yeah, you definitely would have had just as tougher times with stuff you've done in the Marines. Like you say, with the commando course at the end, that week of having to do those tests back to back, culminating in that 30 miler. There's no getting away from it. You know, it's extremely cheeky, extremely hard work. And I think the hills, I think what makes it more especially tough is, and different from Marine training, is you haven't got someone there giving you encouragement. You haven't got, you know, a fantastic team of corporals and a sergeant, you know, as in a training team like you have going through Marine training, giving you the support or beasting, depending on what training team you had. But at the end of the day, whether it be, you know, support or shouting, whatever it was still someone there either saying, get the fuck up and keep going, or come on, you can do it. Whatever it might be, it's still something. You're still getting something that's urging you to carry on. You don't have that, you know, and certainly through the hills phase, if you find yourself halfway through the hills on one of the marches, or halfway through the hills phase, sorry, so you're already knackered after a couple of weeks, halfway through one of the marches in the middle of bloody nowhere, again, you really have to draw on, is this what I want? Because you'll take your Bergen off, you'll sit on your Bergen just to catch your breath, and you will be thinking, Jesus Christ, is this what I want? So that's what makes it tough, not so much the physical side of it. Yeah, it is pretty much, you know, you have to want to do it, but on steroids, because you've got no one there to say, come on, you can do this. That's what makes it tough.
Yeah, got you. Summed it up perfectly. And what was it like then to get out to Afghanistan?
I was shit scared. I was shit scared. I've got to be careful what I say, because there were things in place that should have happened really, and did kind of change after my first tour. But effectively, when I landed in Afghan, I still wasn't sure what I was doing. And again, that kind of overrides the fear of, I'm in war, you know, I'm in Afghan. I didn't have time to really think about that, because I was so preoccupied in thinking about, am I going to fuck up and be a liability to the other guys? That's what made it difficult to me. So I was absolutely shitting myself, and you know, I'll be perfectly honest, and it might be surprising for people to hear it, but I was worried about my confidence. You know, am I ready? I've passed selection, but that's all it is. It's a selection course. And I didn't have, and I think that's why they want people to have that certain amount of experience before going on selection. Because I found it extremely, extremely tough. And it did end up taking its toll, because I was just constantly worried if I was going to be able to produce the goods. Sure enough, obviously, you get the experience and it all ends up coming good. But yeah, that first time was horrendous. And I was on my own as well, because I went to go fill up the numbers from injuries and deaths that had happened in the current squadron that was out there. It was as I was walking past the 2IC's office in Z Squadron, in the squadron that I joined. And the 2IC at the time was like, Tony, come back. It was like, how about going to Afghan? And it was like, yeah, well, yeah, of course.
Wow.
But yeah, so it wasn't like deploying with your buddies, as a group, and you've done all of the build-up training, this, that, and the other. It was like, right, you're right man, right place, or wrong man, or right man, wrong place, wherever you want to look at it. First come, first serve. Do you want to go to Afghan? You need to make up the numbers. They're getting smashed at the moment.
Did they give you a private jet?
I wouldn't have wanted to have got off it.
See, that's the thing, right? When we rocked up in Belfast, and things went bang over there quite a lot when we were there, right? But we were all ready for it, right? Because the build-up was so bloody good. In fact, the problem was the build-up so good. So for our friends at home, you go to a village in Kent. They got a whole mock-up of a town there. They get civilian. They get people from other military units to come and act as civilians. So they all gobbing off and all this stuff in mock Irish accents. And you go out on patrol every day. And depending on what phase of the training you're at, people might open up on you from a building. You've got to take cover. We call it brick commander. So your team commander's got to get on the radio, report contact, casualties, yes or no, while taking charge of the team. Every time you stop, you do a 5-meter check. So you're looking for IEDs or you're looking for hidden weapons, all this sort of stuff. The problem was when we got to, and your team will be contacted, you turn around and the guys, your oppo is lying on the floor and there's a referee there that goes, he's been shot, sucking chest wounds, this kind of stuff, right? You got to deal with that while under fire and all this stuff. And then there's day-to-day kind of admin stuff like stopping the players, right? Excuse me, sir, can I have a word? Or excuse me, Joseph or whatever. Here a minute, mate. Checking the ID. So where are you off to today? Okay, right. Blah, blah. Basically giving the players hard time it was, or interrupting their network. And the problem was when we got out to Belfast, Tony, it was all quiet for the first couple of weeks anyway, right? And then you're like, oh, what was all that training for? Nothing's happening, Yes, you were stopping people and doing your 5-meter checks and covering your arcs and zigzagging as you patrolled down the street, but nothing happened. But when it did start going bang and we started to get contacts, just immediately take cover. You just went into the drill, and it was so surreal that it was so much like what we'd been trained to do, right? Although you can never train perfectly. So did you have any build up before you went, or were you just like, right, your badge now, off you go?
Well, I suppose you've always got the build up, and to a certain extent through selection, and you really do get taught the core basics of how you conduct business in an SF squadron. With the way that you break contact, the way that you engage, whether it be contact front, left, right, behind, so there is that there working in within the small teams, all of your CQB training as well. you do have that there. You know, straight out of the box, you are a highly trained soldier within the context of working in, you know, an SF team. So that was there. It's, I think what makes it difficult with not having or missing out on pre-deployment training like I did on my first tour, because it was so fast and furious, because it was at the heyday of what was going on in Afghan, and we were losing guys, and they did have to, you know, find guys from the other squadrons that weren't deployed to Afghan to go out and make the numbers up. It just so happens that generally that would be from someone who's already been in the service for X amount of years. You know, it's just finding someone who's available. It just so happens that that person was me, and I was just out of the box, and I hadn't had PDT training. So the difference that makes is just the small nuances on how that team works. The big thing for me was the vehicle drills. So that was completely new to me. So going straight out behind enemy lines, working on the vehicles and actually driving one of them, I found myself in the driving seat. I had done the course, by the way, but I hadn't, because I hadn't done PDT training with that particular squadron, I didn't know exactly how the brake contact drills were going to go with the vehicles. I'd never done it. So it was a massive stress of having to learn on the job and asking questions whilst I was behind enemy lines and whilst I was driving that vehicle. You know, if we get contacted, what are they going to do in front? What are they going to do behind? Where do I need to place myself? The most horrendous experience I've ever had. Because again, it's not the fear of something happening, it's the fear of failure. It's the fear of ballsing up and other people getting hurt because of your incompetence. Even though it wasn't my fault, it was still such a stress. But yeah, it does make a massive difference, because my second tour was so much, I'll not use the word enjoyable, that's completely the wrong word. It was more comfortable, because I did go through the full process, you know, of you know, being with my own squadron for starters, you know, the guys that I was used to, that I'd worked with, full PDT training. We knew the ins and outs of how each other worked and what we would do depending on what would happen, and it was a lot more comfortable in that respect. You know, you could almost sort of be, again, not look forward to it, but it was one less thing on your mind. You know, it then freed you up to be able to, you know, think about other more important things, if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes perfect sense. I think probably anybody listening can relate it to something that they do in their lives, because once you've learned it all and you know it inside out, then you can relax and enjoy then, can't you? You know, and just be, It's like writing. When I used to write books, I had to stop every 3 minutes, get a search engine up and type, right, what's a semicolon? Right. And I'd have to do that 30 times before I actually, in my heart, knew what a semicolon does, right? You know, when do I put an introductory comma? Right, read that, read a book. Now I can just write, right? I can just edit, I can punctuate, I can do all that. I also understand the bits that I can fuck up and they don't matter, right? So there should be a comma there, but I don't have to put it. No one's ever gonna write to me and go, Chris, why was that comma not there? It's no one, 99.8% of people are not even gonna know that was actually an issue, you know. So yeah, I think we can all relate to that. Once, I mean, it's like a professional footballer, isn't it? When they get that good, their training is on the pitch. It's the match they play on the Saturday, and then they can not even train, and the next Saturday, bang, their the fitness is up there, the skills are up there, and they can just perform. Whereas when you must join a football team, you're like, oh God, I'm the FNG, I'm the fucking new guy. I don't want to fuck this up for everybody. All the fingers.
So I had that. So it was almost twofold, or threefold even. So I had that new guy element on that first tour, and then on top of that, having the chance to do PDT training. So yeah, it was horrendous. It was quite weird because obviously I had the buzz of I'm actually here now. You're doing the job that you've been trained for. You're actually now, you really are at the sharp end of it all. So it was kind of a bit of mixed emotions. But I do want to make clear that this isn't, a smirk towards the SBS at all. At the end of the day, it was at the heyday of Afghan. Guys were dying, and I was trained. I was a trained rank. I was a badged rank, and they did very quickly afterwards, not because of me, but it did come into place quite quickly that no one would deploy unless they'd done PDT training. So even someone who was going to sort of make up the numbers and replace someone who's been injured or killed, they would still have to do a form of PDT training. Yeah. So yeah, it was just the times. It was very desperate times with what was going on with all of the fighting. And at the end of the day, if I couldn't learn quickly, I wouldn't have got into the squadrons anyway. So, it was just a little bit harder for me because I had to really learn on the job.
It was better they sent you out there than my bloody sister or something. I'm sure you were the best man for the job. And by PDT, I'm guessing we mean pre-deployment training for our armchair warriors out there. How is it then, Tony, when you got into your team there, and obviously we don't say names or anything like that, and this isn't bad mouthing anyone, but it's like as a sprog in the Marines, when you get into your troop or your or troops broken down into 3 or 4 sections, you could end up with some right angry bastard corporal, and if he didn't like you on day one because basically he had an alcohol problem and he was angry all the time, he'd make your life a freaking misery, right? Or it might be a lance corporal that thinks he's a bit of a guy, and he's creeping up to the corporal, and they decide that you're the, this, you see this happen a lot, or you get the guy, he's done one Norway and he thinks that makes him Captain America, right? The guy I'm thinking of used to go around with a pick elf, threatening all the new threatening to stove their heads in with a pick elf. This is a recurring theme in some of my dits, right? I guess what I'm trying to say is you very much got put in your place when you got to your unit, right? You learn who you could fight and who you shouldn't fight because they're just going to beat the shit out of you. You learn who you could gob off to, who you could have a quiet word with if you needed to. And don't get me wrong, for people listening, 95% of the guys were very, very nice men, really, really good people. But that don't help you if if you're lumbered with one of the 5%. So taking this to SF, Tony, are you welcome like an equal professional, or is there any kind of hierarchy, this sort of thing? Oh, are we frozen again? Hang on. Oh, we're unfrozen. Did you hear that, mate? Sorry.
I got bits of it. Yeah, we froze up a little bit again.
Yeah, I was just sort of saying, when you get into your SF team, are you treated like a brother? Well, I mean, you know, you're all brothers, but is it like you've done the training, you're an equal professional, or can you get some idiots in there?
You always do. I think, you know, you'll find that in any walk of life, in any industry, in any job. You know, nothing is impervious, nothing is perfect. And you will always have characters. You'll always have different personalities to varying degrees. I think it comes down to specifics, doesn't it? So you've got what I think you might be talking about with people slipping through the net in regards to having those traits that you wouldn't expect to find in something as high performing as an SF squadron, like a bit of a bully trait, or someone who, you know, can't sort of move forward and continue to sort of innovate themselves, if you like. So they're sort of stuck in their way, and that they'll try to have that same sort of mentality that you might find in the army or some of the marine units. You do still get that. You do still get that. But the other aspect of it is that you've got certain personalities that you can run into that you would never be friends with. They're not particularly nice people. Not many. I'm thinking of just one or two people. And again, I am generalizing. I'm also thinking of other industries and work experiences that I've had. But when it comes down to professionalism, they're top class, and you would want them in your corner if there's ever a problem with something. So it's an interesting question. Yes, you still do get certain people that would be like you described, be a bit of a bully, and still think that they're, you know, God's gift, and they try to sort of throw their weight around. Luckily, with something that's as close knit as SF squadrons, they kind of don't last that long, or they'll end up realizing themselves and change their ways, because, you know, everyone else is like, who the fuck's that? So yeah, I didn't. That was one of the lures for me to go SF, or one of the things that really sort of spurred me on to want to go to SF, is that it is more grown up in that way. And just by the very nature of the selection course and how tough it is, it kind of, as good as it can, weeds out those type of people. So it is only those that are 100% genuine, you know, those that really want to be there and really do take professionalism and doing the job seriously. Not to say that other places aren't within the army and the navy, the marines, this, that, and the other, not at all. But it is what it is. It's something where you do have to be that bit better, you know. And so predominantly it's a good place to be, if you know, because let's face it, you know, you're only really going to go for something like that for certain reasons, aren't you? Yeah, I'd have been very disappointed if I'd have got there and then realized that it was like a bunch of mums outside a primary school and and all the nickering and having to deal with bullying. No, not at all. It's a high performing environment. But of course you do get people that slip through the net.
Yes.
SF or not SF, at the end of the day, we're all human beings, aren't we? And yeah, people will be how people will be, unfortunately.
Yeah. I was just trying to, that wasn't a reference to like my situation. I'm just wondering how they would have been in their unit, and you hear certain things, let's say, and anyway, enough about that shit. Can we, just before we talk about your company, Tony, so your fitness apparatus company is for our friends at home wondering what I'm talking about, not military company. Can you tell us, like, did you have any big firefights over there, or what was it like to be involved in your first one, or were things quite quiet?
No, they weren't quiet. So it was during that busy period of when things were kicking off in Afghan. For, as you'll appreciate, for obvious reasons, I'm not going to go into massive detail about anything at all, really. But really sort of keeping it high level and generalized. The first contact that I was in, I absolutely shit my pants. Stuff started coming back, and this is looking back on it now. Things started coming back to me from the stabbing incident, and this goes back to what I was talking about with where I really should have had help with that as a 15-year-old boy, because once the rounds started flying and cordons were getting contacted as well, so there was contacts all around where I was. I thought we were surrounded, and I was having flashbacks of being stabbed, and that I'm going to be having them all come from all directions. I had to massively get a grip of myself. Obviously ended up, professionalism goes through, plus with the lads, you bring yourself to your senses. But yeah, everyone would probably remember their first contact for various different reasons. That's my reason. I absolutely shat myself. I had flashbacks of being stabbed. And then on top of that made it all the more memorable, is the batteries in my NVGs died. And that wasn't through bad admin. We were still on the old NVGs just prior to the new ones coming in. The new the Gen 2 Alphas. I can't remember the name. I'm terrible with names. That's my brain going mushy. But anyway, the new style of NVGs, the upgraded NVGs, hadn't yet come in. So we were still on the old NVGs. They were great for, they served their purpose, but they were getting on a bit. And some of them were, a bit temperamental. So you can imagine, just as we're stacking up, so I'll paint the picture, at a compound, stacking up, there's heavy fire coming from the alleyway that we were stacking up, about to go round into the alleyway. And person in front of me, he's gone round, we're all moving, it's go, 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 NVG's cut out, completely blind. The only thing that was illuminating what was in front of me was the sparks of the bullets coming off of the side of the walls in the corridor, in the alleyway. And that sort of illuminated it enough. And sure enough, with a couple of bangs and twiddling things, they came back on again. But horrendous. My first contact.
You should have put your head torch on.
Get me mag light out. Whoa, hold on a minute, I can't see anything.
Yes, wow. Gosh, yeah, so for people at home, NVGs, night vision goggles, obviously. Although most young people who play Call of Duty, they know more military stuff than I do.
Yeah.
Although I will tell you, bolt croppers won't cut through that padlock on the. People know what I'm talking about. It's not that easy, folks. Honestly, you're better to chop through the fence than you are to chop through an industrial padlock.
Yeah. The joys of video gaming, eh?
Yeah, Tony, let me just pop us on pause. I'm just going to go and punch a clown. So welcome back. Yeah, went out to punch a clown, had to take on the whole circus. Yes. So how's business, mate? Things are looking up, I'm gathering.
Yeah, things are looking up. It's a tough road. It's taking its time. You know, I think it's tough for anyone. Not specifically just talking about what's happening at the moment, because it's tough for everyone, isn't it? With the situation, extremely tough. It has slowed things up a bit. You know, someone said to me, it's a fitness device. They must be flying off the shelves. Well, it's not as easy as that, because the stage that we're at, you know, you end up having supplier issues as well because of the pandemic. And yeah, it does slow things up a bit, but it is selling. We're teamed up with Battle Ready 360, with Ollie Ollerton and Jason Foxy. So we're teamed up with their company at the moment, Battle Ready 360, and it's exclusively being sold on their platform at the moment. So yeah, wow. It's limited stock. You know, it's first come, first served. It's been sold separately on the BR360 online shop, and it's being sold as part of a package, as like a bundle deal, where you can buy the Battle Ready box, which has got various different bits of fitness equipment in it, all in a box, plus the SF1 trainer as well. So yeah, it's going in the right direction, but there's still a bit of a way to go. It is still a new business. We're really excited about how it can grow with, you know, further innovation on the product itself, other products and services to come in the future. So yeah, it's all looking good.
Yeah, what great endorsement from Ollie and Foxy then, eh? Doesn't come better than that, does it?
It doesn't, mate. It really, yeah, over the moon with it. And it's one of those things, the product speaks for itself. And, you know, you could have the best product in the world, but if it's not marketed in the right way and no one sees it, then it may not sell. That, you know, I'm under no illusions, of course, that is what it is. It's just a fact. But we are really, really lucky that it is a great product that can't, you know, the reason why I mentioned that is because so many people say the product to sell itself. Well, actually, no, a product doesn't sell itself. But what you do have is, if you have got a product that is genuinely good quality and a good product, along with a decent bit of marketing and a bit of luck as well, you know, it can go a long way.
Yes. And how did it come about, Tony? You've got your original there on the right.
Yeah, so I should explain really. So this is just one side of the product. Here's the other side. So it is a suspension trainer, and if you imagine a TRX, you can hang it up on a pull-up bar, on on a goalpost, or a suitable tree branch. It's an established industry. There's lots of people out there with a suspension trainer that's of a TRX type fashion, or whether it be Olympic rings. So the application of suspension trainers is fairly quite well known now. So we're not reinventing the wheel in that way. What we're doing is, you know, something that can do what's already out there, but not just in a different way, but better, if you like. I wouldn't put the TRX down. Fantastic product, really, really well made, brilliant story behind it with Randy Hetrick, the ex-Navy SEAL guy, and it does what it does. It's a brilliant product. What ours does is actually sort of build on that. So as you can see here with the 3 handles, by pressing the buttons on the side, it just moves down the strap. It's a one-way cam system. To move it up, you just pull it up. If you're not touching the buttons, it automatically locks.
Wow.
So the version that's getting sold at the moment is just the 4-handled version. So there's just 2 handles on each side. Theoretically, you can buy as many handles as you want and even come up with kind of a ladder system. But 3 is the optimum. So we will sell a 2-handled version, which is just 1 handle on each strap. A 4-handled version, which is being sold now. And then the top tier product will be the 6-handled version, which is 3 handles on 1 strap like it is here. So once you've hung it up, Chris, it's minimal to 0 adjustments that you need to actually do full circuit training on a suspension trainer without having to touch it. Because you can move the handles to where you want them. So you can have the low handles to jump into press ups, the middle handle to jump into mid-height exercises, whether it be dips or, upright rows, whatever it is you want to do. And then the high handles to either do pull-ups or to hang off for leg raises. And it's down to your imagination, really. One of the things that found when doing the research for it, and also one of the reasons why the idea came about, was the pain that it was to have to constantly adjust, whether it be the rings or the TRX. So if you imagine if you had the rings up quite high so that you could do your dip exercises, pull-ups, whatever it might be. If you then wanted to do press-ups or have the rings lower for whatever reason, you'd have to actually get up quite high to then adjust the anchor point to lower it down.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to do a circuit, it's going to piss you off. The same with the TRX. You've got that single anchor point where you're constantly raising and lowering the handles. But this completely eliminates that. So you literally hang it up, come up with whatever exercises or circuit that you want, and then you can crack on. Now, if you've only got the 2-handled version, so just one of these handles on each side, even though you're going to be adjusting constantly, because it's at the point of the handle and right there, it's just slipping the handles up and down each time. So as far as the user friendliness of it's concerned, it's fantastic. So that's where we are at the moment. There's other ideas, there's other attachments that's going to be coming out, but that's where we are with how the product is now. You asked about where the idea originally came from. This is it here. It's an old piece of deck rope with an old hollow plastic handle, and that is what sort of birthed the idea, if you like, or that's where the idea was born that turned it into this.
Got you.
And it was through necessity. I found myself on maritime operations doing the old anti-piracy stuff, and it was another 4-month transit away in the Indian Ocean, and usually one of the team would have rings or TRX or something like that, because these type of training devices are brilliant for if you've got very limited space and you can still get the maximum amount of training out of a minimum amount of space. So I found myself on a deployment where no one had bought one. And I was being lazy and a bit cheap with not buying something myself. But anyway, I found myself away with no suspension trainer, and I was really getting into it. So I thought, you know what, it can't be that difficult. At the end of the day, rings or a TRX is just a strap or a rope with a handle on. So I decided to make my own, which was easy enough. A bit of rope, tie the handle in. Where I'd tied, I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to take it off. Where I'd put the rope through the handles, I had to tie a knot each side so that it obviously didn't just slip down. So it caused, as it was hung up, it caused these two bits of rope to just be hanging down, because I just wanted to use it for dips. So I'd do pull-ups and then jump into suspended dips because it was helping me get over a plateau. But then I thought, hold on a minute. Looking down at these bits of rope that were just hanging to the floor, I thought, if I tie a knot in the bottom and that's just sort of just hanging off of the floor, I can then do pull-ups, jump down into dips, and then jump instantly down into suspended press-ups. So I took myself through a little circuit of, like 10 pull-ups, 10 dips, 10 press-ups, bit of a rest, and back through again. Went through that 5 times, stood back. It gave me such a pump and such a feeling of a good workout. I thought, that's a better workout than I've ever had on using a TRX or using the rings. And then that's what started the cogs whirring, because I thought, right, there might be something in this. If I've had a better workout with a bit of rope and a plastic handle than I've ever had on any other product, there could be something here. So as I started thinking more and more, I thought, right, I've got to be serious about this, because I can't patent a rope, a bit of deck rope and a plastic handle. There's nothing there to patent. And my head hurts thinking about it now. I don't know how. It was literally a moment of madness, if you call it. I don't know. I dare I say genius, but the idea, we came up with the idea for the handles to move, which of course is highly patentable, and we are granted in the UK and patent granted in the US as well. So the playing field has been laid, or the ground has been laid, and it's ready for us to start running on it.
How long does it take to get the patent then, to get to get it passed?
Quite a few years. So for us, it took between about 3 years, maybe just over 3 years. Yeah, quite a bit of money and quite a bit of time.
Were you worried in that time that somebody else might not, bring out the same idea?
Extremely worried. But you just try and stick to the advice you get. You try and stick to the process that you feel is right. It very much was difficult at times in regards to, we really want to try and get this out there and test the market, but because it's not protected, how do we go about that? Because someone else, and you see it all of the time, and history is peppered with accounts of bigger businesses seeing a good idea, and these big businesses, they can do what we've done over the past 4 or 5 years with the prototype development. I don't know if you can see them there. That
yes,
the journey, the different prototypes that we had to have made up. Look at the state of that.
Wow.
So the different prototype iterations that we had to go through until we finally got it right, took time and money, and but we kind of had to figure out the balance of sort of paralysis by analysis, not overthinking it too much and not holding ourselves back, But at the same time, you have got to be careful, because, so getting back to the point I was making, is for a big established company, what took us a couple of years going through all of that prototyping, they can do in months.
Yeah, of course. Did you have to keep it a secret then until you got the patent?
Yeah, I got bored of asking people to sign NDAs, and it even got to the point where I asked one of the business advisors, you know, do we actually need to keep doing this, because it is becoming quite embarrassing. And strangely enough, a lot of people are actually quite adverse to it, and they're like, oh, well, I don't actually want to deal with you then if I've got to sign an NDA. And it's like, well, at the end of the day, we've got a unique product that we're looking to patent. You know, all it does is protect from you stealing the idea. So actually, it didn't bother me too much, because I thought, well, if you don't want to sign an NDA, you're not, you know, someone that I want to be speaking to anyway. But once we found the way of getting the funds to file the patent, when the patent is actually going through its pending phase, you're worldwide protected. Your protection only drops out if it doesn't sort of get granted
okay.
the patent. But yeah, so all the way through its pending stage, you are protected from the time that you file it.
So
But it doesn't stop people.
All your stationery and your packaging has got to change from pat's pending to patented at some point.
To granted, yeah. Well, luckily we're still at the stage where we haven't got, you know, a massive amount of marketing or you know, assets behind us in that way. We are still very much growing. So yeah, that's not going to be too much of a headache, to be honest.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Well, listen, Tony, we'll put links to where people can buy your product, right? The trainer.
Yeah, absolutely. BR360, Battle Ready 360. The SF1 Strength is obviously, you know, a good place to go to find out more. There's promotional videos on there that give you a sense of what the kit is and what it can do.
That's a Facebook page, isn't it? SF1 Strength.
Yeah, Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
And then sf1strength.com is our landing page where you can plumb in your email and you'll get updates. There is an apology actually that I want to put out to those that have already put in their email on the SF1 Strength website. We are having technical issues at the moment with sending out the welcome email to say thank you for signing up. Hopefully, you know, that's going to be sorted out within the coming weeks. But it still works in way of being able to put your details in. So I would still say, if you want to find out more and be updated when there's new innovations, when there's other products coming out, then yeah, please go to sf1strength.com and put your details in. It's just your email.
Tony, listen, you've been absolutely amazing, mate. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and mate, give us a bell anytime.
I'm still wondering if you've got the right bloke.
I just want to say though, you know, you can call me anytime, mate, if you want anyone to chat to about anything, and I know I can do that with you. And so to our friends out there, don't struggle in silence. Reach out, and you know, the future is bright. You know, the future is bright, and yes. So Tony, just stay on the line so I can thank you properly. But massive thank you again. I wish you all the luck with your venture and in life. To all our friends at home, massive love to you all. Take care. Thank you for tuning in. If you can like and subscribe and do all that kind of stuff, it's going to help us. And we'll see you next time.